Good evening. Good evening, everyone. Thank you for joining us tonight, this evening. My name is Kyle Kriegel. I'm the Regional Executive Officer with the American Red Cross of Western Wisconsin Chapter. I'd like to introduce tonight our EMC, Andrea Albers from WQOW News 18.
Thanks, Kyle. And good evening, everyone. In addition to anchoring the news at WQOW, I also serve as a board member for our local Red Cross chapter, so I am very pleased and proud to host the 9th annual Brave Hearts Real Heroes Award Banquet tonight. Welcome to this very special evening, and thank you all for joining us. Now, this event would not be possible without the very generous support of Sacred Heart Hospital. Would you please join me in welcoming Faye Dyke, Interim President and CEO for Sacred Heart Hospital, and the Operating Officer and Senior Vice President for Hospital Operations, Hospital Sisters Health System Western Wisconsin Division, and former chapter board member.
Thank you very much. Well, on behalf of the Hospital Sisters, the administration, the physicians, colleagues, and volunteers of Sacred Heart, I want to welcome you to this best night of the year, in my opinion, event with the Red Cross chapter for our awards. This is, Sacred Heart has been the primary sponsor along the journey of this wonderful event, and we're very proud and pleased to be a part of it. You know, the word hero can have a lot of different connotations. For the young, there are heroes in comic book pages like Superman and Wonder Woman. For the sports enthusiast, a hero may be the quarterback of your favorite football team. And yes, Aaron is still my hero in spite of the fact that we're not going to the Super Bowl. A hero is the firefighter who goes into a burning building to save a family, or a doctor who performs life-saving surgery. And on a smaller scale, for me, right now my husband's a really big hero to me. I've had carpal tunnel surgery, and as I'm picking out which necklace to put on, and then I don't get the right one, and he has to change it again. He's being a really good sport right now for me. Seriously, we have so many everyday heroes right here in the Chippewa Valley. That's what we're here to celebrate this evening. Now, to go back a little bit in the history of the Red Cross, Clara Barton was the founder and the first president of the American Red Cross, established in 1881, and she was a wonderful hero. She has a fascinating history of being a pioneer in the world. For instance, she became a teacher in Massachusetts at the age of 17 and founded her own school in North Oxford only 6 years later. She went on to study at the Liberal Institute in New York and then taught in a school in New Jersey, convincing the community to make the school tuition free, an unusual practice to say the least, and the school grew from 6 to 600 students. When the Civil War ended, Clara went to Georgia to identify the Union soldiers in unmarked graves who had died at a Confederate prison camp and helped to establish a national cemetery there. Clara Barton was a hero to so many, but she didn't just talk about supporting people in need of help. She did it herself and led the way for so many others to follow in her footsteps. As president of the Red Cross, she traveled to many disaster and war scenes to bring and administer aid to those who were suffering. She no doubt demonstrated many selfless acts of courage and kindness in her lifetime, as do our heroes whom we are honoring this evening. Everyday heroes reflect what is best in our community, and they are often ordinary people who do extraordinary things. Maybe it's the teacher who spends hour after hour of her own time to tutor a special student, or the nurse who takes the shoes off her own feet to give to her patient who has none. Maybe it's the busy executive who takes his elderly neighbor grocery shopping every week, or the priest chaplain who shows up at a patient's hospital room just when he's needed the most. Or maybe it's the brave women who came to Eau Claire from Germany over a century ago to start a hospital when there was no health care available in the area. There are so many acts of goodness and kindness we encounter each and every day. There are so many everyday heroes among us. Tonight is a night to honor brave hearts and real heroes in the Chippewa Valley. Clara Barton once said, "The door that nobody else will go in seems always to swing open widely for me." Let's celebrate with joy those heroes who are never afraid to go through the door in order to help their brother or sister in need. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Sacred Heart Hospital, and thank you, Faye, for your inspiring words tonight. And thank you to Marshfield Clinic and Iconostar Productions for sponsoring the video production of this event you'll see here later tonight. We would also like to thank the Florian Gardens for all their assistance and gifts that helped make tonight possible. Now, no nonprofit would be successful without its mission-driven board of directors, staff, and volunteers. I know you're scattered all over the room tonight, so would you please stand and let's give a warm thanks and round of applause. Thank you all. Tonight we gather to honor some very special people, brave hearts and real heroes, individuals who have demonstrated great acts of courage and kindness for the sake of others. Our search for the 2012 Brave Hearts and Real Heroes extended across 14 counties served by the chapter, and not surprisingly, we received nominations from many of these counties. After all the nominations were received, a selection committee comprised of sponsors and Red Cross volunteers came together to make the final selections. Tonight we honor 10 individuals and one organization who deserve our recognition and who, by example, challenge each of us to step forward in ways that perhaps we have never considered. We are also here tonight because of the generosity of many individuals and businesses, and their funding allows our chapter to continue its important work. Now let's take a look at our Brave Heart and Real Hero sponsors.
It takes a lot of people to put on a function like this one. Our Red Cross chapter staff and our many volunteers working behind the scenes, like the selection committee, who waded through the many nominations and made the final selections. And these very special companies and local businesses that have funded tonight's celebration, because without their generosity, this event would not happen. Our first big thanks goes to Sacred Heart Hospital for their generous initial contribution. For 9 years now, they have led the way as our primary sponsor. Then came State Farm Insurance and Marshfield Clinic, who financed the production of all the video you will see tonight. Of course, Iconostar Productions LLC did all of the filming and video editing, and we salute their talent and many hours of work. Our promotional sponsors are Chippewa Valley Newspapers, Clear Channel Communications, Eau Claire Press Company, Leader Telegram, and WQOW-TV 18, which is also lending us their news anchor. Also listed in your program are the specific sponsors of each of the Brave Hearts and Real Heroes Awards. We salute each of you: American Family Insurance, Bauerbuilt, Festival Foods, Foremost Farms, Mayo Clinic Health System, United Bank, and XL Energy. Our award sponsor is Derry State Bank. Our dinner and reception sponsors are Charter Bank, Group Health Cooperative, the Florian Gardens, Jenny O Turkey Store, Norsky Nook, R.W. Baird, and Whitflea. Our helping hand sponsors are A1 Rental Center, Bremer Bank, Buy Golf and Roadie, Culvers of Rice Lake, Global Finishing Solutions, My Receptionist, St. Joseph's Hospital, TTM Technologies, Johnson Lithographics, and Weld Riley Pren and Ritchie. The sponsors for tonight's prize package are Hans Market, Quick Trip, Silver Spring Foods, Metropolis Resort, and Williams Diamond Center. Please join together now in applauding the contributions of all these supporters.
I hope you will remember these sponsors, and if you get a chance tonight or in the next few days, take a moment to thank their representatives for supporting our chapter and for supporting Brave Hearts, Real Heroes. 2011 was a year of unprecedented disaster across the country. The American Red Cross helped hundreds of thousands of people whose lives were forever changed by fires, tornadoes, floods, wildfires, and hurricanes. In 2011 alone, the American Red Cross launched 137 domestic disaster relief operations in 46 states and territories. In 1 year, the Red Cross opened more than 1,000 shelters, served over 6 million meals and snacks, and deployed more than 27,000 disaster relief workers. State after state faced the powerful force of tornadoes in 2011. Devastating winds plowed through many neighborhoods, leaving destruction in their wake. Through it all, the Red Cross was on scene, providing a safe place to stay, food to eat, and supplies to help with the cleanup. The Red Cross helped people affected by large-scale tornadoes in 18 states, including Wisconsin. Almost 20 states were impacted by flooding in 2011. Hurricane Irene and Tropical Storm Lee caused the need for relief operations in more than a dozen states. Thousands of disaster workers were deployed, and more than 250 Red Cross feeding trucks were sent into neighborhoods to hand out meals and cleanup supplies. In New York and New Jersey alone, the Red Cross provided almost 34,000 overnight stays in shelters and distributed more than 840,000 meals and snacks. Wildfires consumed almost 4 million acres across the state of Texas and destroyed thousands of acres in New Mexico, Arizona, Florida, and Oklahoma. Again, the Red Cross stepped in to help the fire-ravaged neighborhoods, providing a safe place to stay, food to eat, and emotional support for those forced to leave their homes, as well as firefighters and first responders. It is in these dramatic times of disaster that our local Red Cross volunteers answer the call to action. Sleeves up, hearts open, all in.
I can't remember if it's 8 or 9 years ago now that I went to the Red Cross and inquired about what kind of volunteer work I could do, not really understanding what the Red Cross does.
Well, for many years, my wife and I gave blood. And after I retired, the idea came up, maybe there's something else we can do for the Red Cross.
I got involved in 2006. And it was right after Katrina had hit and the Red Cross was down there, and I kept watching on the news, and my heart was really broken and sad to see all of that. But I was afraid. I was afraid because I kept telling myself, you can't help. You don't know how to help. And it was through a friend that encouraged me to go to the Red Cross and sign up as a volunteer.
Last September then I received a phone call saying, you're needed. We need to get you to eastern Pennsylvania, to Wilkes-Barre. Hurricane Irene dumped lots of water on that whole eastern area. And then Tropical Storm Lee came along and dumped even more rain. And as a result, the Susquehanna River started to rise.
My very first one was Katrina, and that was kind of a shock. Every situation is different, depending obviously on what kind of disaster it is, if it's a fire, if it's flooding, tornado, hurricane.
Going on national deployments, so many memories of being in various places in the nation, and I remember seeing those people coming out of their homes, and they had pushed couches and rugs and everything out into the mud on their lawns, and I remember seeing them come out and they had mud caked on them. And they would come up to the IRV and we'd give them the meals, and they would say, Red Cross rocks. Thank you, Red Cross. And a few times I just had to turn my head away because I just started tearing up, seeing all the hard work they had to go through and how much they appreciated the Red Cross being there and helping them.
Right up front, when an emergency happens, that's what the Red Cross does, is shelter, food, and clothing. We will come, no matter what time of day or night, what day of week, whether it's New Year's Eve, Christmas, whatever, we will come and we'll help at that time.
All of it boils down sooner or later to individuals and corporations providing the financial support that the Red Cross needs to do what it is that the Red Cross does.
We only work with donated money.
When something happens in our own community, all the donations that have been collected from people in our community, it's wonderful to see that local people are getting that help.
we as a community have to recognize that we can't just live in our homes and enjoy our lives. We've got to be of help to others. There are lots of people in our society who need support, and this is one way that I can be of support to others, and I think that's valuable.
And I look at myself as I'm helping my neighbors in one way or another to help them through a problem they have. And I know that if I needed the same, the Red Cross would be there to help me too.
It's very rewarding to be in the Red Cross and to help people and to see that what you are doing really means something to someone else.
The Western Wisconsin chapter deployed 45 disaster relief volunteers to 13 states in 2011. We have several of those volunteers among us tonight, and we're going to hear now from two of them. It is my great pleasure to introduce to you two of our own local disaster relief volunteers, Nancy Schuster and Donna Borner.
Hi. What does the Red Cross do? What does a volunteer do? We can list Red Cross services in 4 basic areas: blood collection, health and safety classes such as CPR, first aid, babysitting, and swimming lessons, service to the armed forces, and disaster services. While all of these areas are vital to the daily operation of the Red Cross and in servicing our community, tonight we're here to talk about one: disaster services. For any size disaster, whether a single family house fire to a devastating tornado, volunteers are pre-trained and registered through the local chapters. Deployment to a national disaster is usually a minimum of a 2-week assignment. Locally, we have our disaster action teams. We refer to them as DATs. Did you know that our local area has teams of volunteers on call 24/7, including holidays? Each of our 14 counties has teams ready to go if a call comes from a government agency such as police, fire, or the emergency management personnel from that county. We will respond to help people with their emergency needs for food, clothing, and shelter. And if needed, we'll refer and connect them to other community resources in their recovery process. This time of year, house fires are our most common response. This January alone, our local DAC teams have responded to 8 calls, assisting 35 individuals. We also train and prepare for any larger disaster that could happen in our chapter area, such as tornadoes, floods, or an incident that might necessitate evacuation of an area. Don and I would now like to share with you a couple of stories from our national deployments in 2011 that demonstrate the ways we try to help our clients, how we try to hone our own skills, and how ultimately we find personal rewards in what we do.
Last year I was deployed to Paducah, Kentucky. Very beautiful city. That all-American hometown atmosphere. My partner and I were working as client caseworkers. We were given an address and we're driving to a client's home and seeing the destruction all around us from the flood. We could tell the area that we were in had homes with a lot of history to them. As we turned and drove up the client's long driveway, we saw what used to be a beautiful, well-manicured lawn with many mature trees. Now before us, we saw dirty, mucky sludge all over the lawn with debris hanging from low branches. We pulled up to the home and there was a picture-perfect porch, the length of that home with a swing hanging at the end. The swing had a pillow and a blanket on it. It looked like someone had been sleeping there. The owner met us and we introduced ourselves. He looked at us as we covered our noses and he said, "If you have masks, go ahead and put them on." I said, "I'm sorry, but the smell is really bad." Then we saw the front door was wide open and heard fans inside running. They were trying to blow the smell outside. I stayed on the porch as my partner put on a mask and went inside to look around very quickly. He came out and said, "All of his clothes are moldy. All the furniture is moldy. The refrigerator door was open and everything in there is moldy. The water line is above my head on the walls. This home is destroyed." We sat down with the client on his porch and I asked him, "Where are you staying?" He said, "I sleep here on my porch. I can't stand the thought of leaving my home. This home has been in my family for generations. And one day I wanted to pass it down to my son." Tears welled up in his eyes and he shook his head. But my 13-year-old son told me he never wanted to come back to this place or see this place again, and it broke my heart. Tears now came into our eyes. We told him we could help him with his immediate emergency needs, such as cleanup kits with mops and buckets and bleach, comfort kits with personal toiletry items, food, clothing, blankets, water, and explained the Moving Forward booklet to him. While we were offering him this help and getting his information, he was shaking his head, yes, as to say, yes, this would help me. But then we had something else to offer him, which gave him a little bit more help. We explained to him that we could arrange to have a mental health worker come and speak to his son about what they were going through with this disaster. I said, "Your son needs to talk about this with someone who can understand and help him." He looked at us with big tears in his eyes and said, "I think that would be just what he needs." And I went on to say, "You also might want to talk to someone." He sat there shaking his head yes, and said, "I think I would like to do that." I told him we'll make all those arrangements for him. As we said our goodbyes, gave our hugs, walked off that porch, got into our car, and drove down that long driveway. My partner and I didn't say a word for a while. We both felt that at that point, we really did help another person. We could feel his devastation. We walked through it. We smelled it. We saw it. And we realized that as Red Cross volunteers, what we did there for that family was well worth us leaving our homes, our families, our comfortable lives, and putting on boots and masks and gloves, driving all that way to talk with, support, and offer help to one family. It made us feel really good inside.
This is a story about a dog and a tornado victim that we'd already helped. This was in Virginia this past spring. Virginia had a tornado in the mountain areas of western part of Virginia. My partner and I were going house to house in a neighborhood, a holler. Do you know what a holler is? I didn't. My new Virginia friends taught me pretty quick what a holler was. In this mountain region, you have these valleys, and in these valleys are these little communities. These are the hollers. So we went into a holler. We wanted to check on how the people were doing since the tornado. Had everyone been seen? Was everyone's needs being met? A house that had been destroyed by the tornado was now being demolished. The homeowner was staying at a neighbor's when we stopped in to check on them. We'd already given some aid to this person and his wife. The old homeowner had tears in his eyes as we talked, and he watched his house come down. Then the neighbor said, "Tell them about your dog." The man had a sad smile on his face as he started to talk. The dog, a lab mix, was his, but this dog took responsibility for the entire holler. An example, the previous Christmas, a strong wind blew a house decoration away and it ended up down the street. The dog found it, picked it up, and put it on the front porch of the rightful owner. After the tornado, the dog continued his roaming around and checking on things. Now, the Red Cross has a truck that we call the Emergency Response Vehicle, or ERV. Our ERV was delivering meals to this neighborhood twice a day. Immediately following many major disasters, we hand out free meals to anyone who wants them. That way people can continue to work on restoring and cleaning their properties. The ERV blasts its horn a couple times to tell everyone to come and get a hot meal. Well, when that horn was blasted, wherever that dog was, he took off running as fast as he could. He went to the front of the line, and he came to a sliding stop. He would then sit and wait patiently for the food to be given out. Well, yes, of course, our drivers would share a little bit of food with this dog. Well, by now, we were all chuckling. This was a story about a dog, but it's also a story about people who are hurting and who are trying to begin their healing process, and about what is sometimes the skill we, as volunteers, need to practice most: just listening.
The first time I met and worked with Nancy was when Jenny, the chapter emergency services director, had asked us to organize and clean up the storage area at the office in Altoona. All day we had worked organizing, stacking, arranging all those boxes. At the end of the day, we had become friends, walked away feeling that we had completed a job and did our best. Since then, Nancy and I have taught as co-instructors, worked together on committees. We were deployed to a shelter together, and I've watched Nancy as a volunteer utilize her skills and life experiences to benefit clients with needs. It's been my pleasure working alongside Nancy, and tonight to be able to share this podium with her and our stories with you tonight. When a disaster occurs in Tulsa, Alabama, Joplin, Missouri, Paducah, Kentucky, Nashville, Tennessee, it can seem like 1,000,000 miles away from western Wisconsin. When hundreds or thousands of lives have been disrupted 4 states away, it's hard to emphasize with the situation because your world remains the same, and you go about your day just as any other day. But when you are a Red Cross volunteer, every disaster grips your heart. Could I ask all of the disaster volunteers and staff present tonight, just please stand a moment. All the staff and Red Cross volunteers. When a, go ahead. Just stand for just a moment, please. When a Red Cross disaster volunteer returns home from a deployment, they bring so many stories and life-changing experiences home with them. Just ask them to tell you one of their favorite stories. Some will be quite funny, such as, how many ways can a Red Cross volunteer use duct tape? Or ask Bob Hauser, what is it like to drive in New Jersey? He has some good stories there. Some stories will be tear-jerkers. Some stories will be just unbelievable. These volunteers draw from their life experiences, their skills, and their talents to serve people from their hearts in our local communities, and they add to the strength of our local chapters. Thank you very much. You may be seated. Whether the disaster is a house fire down the street or a flood affecting half a state, the Red Cross is there when our nation is in need. Our community is in need. or perhaps maybe your family is in need. Red Cross volunteers are there with their sleeves up, hearts open, all in. They don't do it for the recognition, much like our brave hearts and our real heroes here tonight. The good deeds they've done came from the heart. They are people who make our communities better simply because they care. It's an honor to be sharing in this room with so many deserving people here tonight. Thank you.